First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you so much. I actually wanted to thank Brian specifically, but also the Aetherius Society for inviting us. You know, we both, I guess, what I know by the Aetherius Society and certainly by the IEC that I'll introduce a little bit better in a second. You know, we're institutions precisely that try to inform, to help people, to collaborate. And then this certainly is a good sign of that. So thank you so much for your effort and for insisting. I know that we're always a little bit busy, but certainly we want to make it happen. So thank you so much, definitely. And then let's start here. Like Brian was saying, I wanted to give you an idea, a little bit of the IEC first, but also of you know, arriving at this you know, main topic for today, which is protection there from interferences. So first of all, just for you to have a better idea of who we are, the IEC stands for International Academy of Consciousness. We basically are a nonprofit organization of research and of education. So this is our main objective, right? To try to compile, to amass, to gather as much information as we can and to pass it on to interested individuals such as yourselves. We have been doing this for a while already, several decades of activities and classes. I'll talk a little bit about Dr. Vieira in a second, but maybe jumping a little bit ahead. But really what I wanted to show you first of all, I guess, is just to give you a little bit an idea of the size of the institution. We have basically offices and educational centers all over the world. Even this brochure that you received there, you know, when you came in, you said there are all the cities where we give classes. And here in the US, just to mention just the US, we have a permanent office in New York, one in Florida in Miami, and one here in Los Angeles in Culver City, so not too far away from here. But this more than anything to give you an idea of the size of the institution. I would say in the entire world, we must be maybe about 300 to 500 researchers more dedicated full-time to the study of all of these topics. Out-of-body experiences or astral travel, vital energy, psychic protection, consciousness evolution, multidimensional realities. Most of my colleagues, they are doctors, they are psychologists, certainly this is the majority of them, but they're basically scientists of all kinds. So physicists, biologists, chemists, sociologists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And also maybe something important to mention, there is a certain number of, you know, a certain percentage of my colleagues, a smaller percentage, but still relevant, that don't necessarily have a college degree. But they have a lot of experience with all of this information and they contribute with all of this experience. Something that, of course, is completely welcome. So this more than anything to give you an idea of the institution. Our headquarters are actually located in Portugal, where we have like a university campus, and this is something I sort of like wanted to show you real quick. This is a little bit like the architectural map of the campus, and really this is not the entire piece of land because it continues all the way around here. But what I wanted to point out were these little half spheres that usually are what call the attention a little bit more of individuals. These half spheres that you see here are laboratories, individual laboratories for producing different paranormal phenomena. Paranormal phenomena. The main one here is this round one here in the middle that is actually a full sphere that we call it the projectarium, which would be the specialized lab for producing projections outside the body, or out-of-body experiences, astral travel, unfolding, et cetera, et cetera. To give you an idea of how that lab looks, I'm gonna have to, you know, apologize here for the science fiction reference, but I don't know how many of you saw this movie, X-Men. You remember this movie? If you didn't see it, I'm sure that your kids or your nephews saw it. There is this structure in this movie, I'm sure that some of you saw it, that is a round spheric structure where, you know, the main character or Professor Xavier goes in, puts on a helmet. The ones that saw the movie are gonna remember this. I think that in the movie it's called Cerebrum. When we saw this movie, we thought, look, these guys from Hollywood stole our idea, because this is exactly the projectarium. Of course, the movie is, you know, science fiction, naturally. But the projectarium is actually something that has been in existence and in operation for several years already. And just like in the movie, it's a complete sphere because it continues underneath the ground. There is a plank in the middle, and then it's an individual laboratory in the sense that people go in, lie down in the middle of the plank, they try to produce or they apply certain techniques and try to leave the body, have an out-of-body experience. And there are a lot of optimizations in the lab that help them to accomplish this. And of course, there we are also as researchers, you know, measuring biological things or seeing which technique worked better, and then using this precisely so as to teach in the classes. And many times us as well, we go there and try the projectarium and also have our own experiences. So it's just simply part of the process of gathering data, let's put it this way. So again, trying to give you an idea of the institution, I guess, of where all of this comes from. Moving here a little bit, yes, this is something important for us. Basically, any activity in any part of the world, in any corner, in any city, we always like to begin with this phrase. Don't believe in anything, not even in what we are saying here, but experiment. Have your own experiences. And really we say this because this idea of psychic abilities or psychic phenomena, or especially out-of-body experiences, is not something that we need to believe in, but it's something that the moment that we experiment, we realize is a certainty. So sometimes, I actually find students in a less formal setting in the supermarket, and sometimes, because it is a less formal setting, they sort of like pull me to the side and they ask me, do you really believe in this? And sometimes this question for me is a little strange. It's a little bit as if I were to ask you right now, and I know this is going to sound very strange, but just to emphasize this idea, it's a little bit as if I were to ask you right now, do you believe in your hand? It sounds so strange, because what happens that our hand is a certainty, something that we use every day, that we experience. So to put our hand in the category of belief is strange, because it's more in the category of certainty. So when they ask me this question, to me it also sounds extremely strange. So our intention, of course, is to try to pass on, and this is part of the big reason for having this, is to try to pass on as much information as we can, so that individuals develop their own experiences, their own capacity, which in essence gives them a lot of freedom. It's more or less, we say, like learning how to read. Everything that we present in our presentations, in our classes, it's based basically on the biggest consensus that we have been able to arrive. Not only, with our own experiences, as Brian was mentioning, I've had a few years of out-of-body experiences, 2 decades and a half, more or less. But what we present here is not going to be based on my experiences only, but on all of my colleagues' experiences and on all of the historical research that we have done. So sometimes the don't believe in anything is because we joke here at the beginning and we say, we're not going to pull rabbits out of the hat. We're not going to say something just because it's dazzling or, how could I say, it's going to, we're going to go outside of what we have actually observed and experienced. But on the contrary, everything that we mention is already well documented, has a lot of experience, and at the end, certainly feel free to ask for this. So keep this in mind. We certainly hold ourselves to this. Yes, but this is the first of all the textbook of the formal study projectology, or the study of the projections outside the body. So out-of-body experiences, unfolding, mystic voyage, astral travel. I don't know what might be the name that you might be more familiar with. So its author, Dr. Vieira, a good friend, colleague of mine, he is a Brazilian doctor, an odontologist, a surgeon. He has a couple other degrees that right now escape me. But he had out-of-body experiences also since a very early age. And he basically realized something that probably we all can realize, that most philosophies, most cultures throughout the world, they have a little bit of information about the out-of-body experience. This is not that unknown to them. So, but what happens is that it's almost as if the pieces of the puzzle are scattered all over the world. So he decided to spend about 20, 30 years of his life going about the world, trying to collect all of these pieces of the puzzle and try to put all of this study together to have a more coherent picture of everything that is occurring. So he's the initial researcher, the main researcher, certainly, very good friend of ours. But after him come these other 300-500 other researchers that for about 20 years, we have kept on adding material to the pot. Now, projectology basically studies everything that pertains to the ability, to the phenomena. What are the techniques for leaving the body? I know sometimes people are very interested in this. This book must have maybe about 40 or so, 40, 50, I never really have counted them. What happens when you leave the body? What are the sensations of this connection? Maybe some of you have felt different sensations, let's call it this, when you were falling asleep or waking up in the morning, and this sometimes is because of the transitional period when we are falling asleep. Once we leave the body, what do we see? Where do we go? Whom do we encounter? What is this idea of many dimensions or of multiple planes of existences that people describe, that we describe when we have out-of-body experiences? How do they structure? who are the beings that are out there? You know, who are they? Do they want to help us, etc., etc.? This one, unfortunately, we only have it in Portuguese, and we are working to translate it into Spanish, English, German, etc., etc. And I know that the spelling is not that different from our English, so it's conscientiology. Conscientiology would be the study of the consciousness, where the name of the institution comes from, International Academy of Consciousness. What we mean by consciousness is not so much, or it's not only the state of being aware, but what we mean by consciousness is the essence, the intelligent principle that we are independent of the physical body. I know that we usually call this essence, this intelligent principle, of soul, spirit, right? If somebody were to ask you on the street, what are you in essence? You would say, I'm a soul, I'm a spirit, probably the most common names that we use. We would just simply, maybe a little bit more academically, say we are a consciousness, and the study of the consciousness is conscientiology.